Howdy, welcome back to All Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you're a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. I can now finally say, Cowboys are heading out west. Round number 6 for the 2025 NRL season begins on Thursday night from Suncorp Stadium. The Dolphins host the Penrith Panthers. Panthers, they come into the game as $1.39 favourites, whereas the Dolphins are $3 outsiders. There are team list changes for both of these teams. For the home team, first of all, Tom Gilbert returns from a one-game suspension. Ray Stone is out for one game due to a suspension as well. Their interchange looks like Donohoe, Nichols, Lemuelu and Josh Kerr, and the back row sees it as Finafuiaki, Gilbert and Max Plath in the back row. For the Penrith Panthers, enormous news for them. They have Dylan Edwards coming back into the fold. He is at fullback. The rest of the back line reads Alamotti, Tungo, Jenkins and Case McLean. Jack Cole suffered a head knock last weekend, therefore Blaze Talangi partners Nathan Cleary in the halves. That back line looks instantly better, doesn't it? At least in my opinion anyway. The forward pack, there is one change. Mitch Kenny will be out for a couple of weeks due to a shoulder injury. Therefore, Luke Summerton will come in at hooker. And I've always had a nice, good opinion of Luke Summerton. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very good to see how he goes this Thursday night up at Suncorp. And then the interchange for them reads Brad Schneider, Papali'i, Liam Henry and Luke Garner. Dane Laurie is the 18th man for the Penrith Panthers. The Panthers' defense is what's really kicking them in the arse at the moment. They can still attack, they can still score points, but it's never been that way, has it? The Penrith Panthers have always been more known for their defense. The attack was always something that was clunky, and now both of it is sort of mid-range. It's a little bit average at the moment. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, they got their first win last weekend against the Gold Coast Titans, and it's great for the Dolphins. Well done to them, well done to you. But they weren't all that fantastic, in my opinion. It's just that the other side, the other team that they were battling were that bad, in my opinion anyway. So I am going to tip the Penrith Panthers here. They're still the perennial champions, but it's a Panthers side that we have not seen in a very, very long time. But they'll get back on track, a little bit more back on track after Thursday night with, I'll say a 13 plus points win this Thursday night. Friday night football, there are two contests. Match number 1 emanates from Wynn Stadium in Wollongong. The Dragons host the Gold Coast Titans. The Dragons are $1.53. The Titans are $2.52. There are team list changes for both of these sides, but the back line for the Dragons is unchanged. The forward pack is unchanged, and then the interchange, actually that's the same 1 to 17 for the Dragons. Now into the Gold Coast Titans for them. Big Tino is out of this contest due to a suspension, so therefore it will be Chris Randall who will start at lock. Bo Firmo, Khaleesi Haas rounds out the back row with Fodawaker, Regan Campbell-Gillard starting props, and Sam Verrills returns to action after having last weekend off. And I saw that first thing in the morning on game day for the Gold Coast Titans, and I thought, I tipped you earlier this weekend, but I don't think it's going to emanate for you tonight, and I think he was a massive loss for them. But it's good to see him back. The interchanges, Hull, Fafita, Jolliffe and Brock Gray. The Gold Coast Titans, I gave you the benefit of the doubt last weekend, and they were dreadfully disappointing. For the Dragons, I just thought that the Parramatta Eels had been building up to that win for the past few weeks. They kind of got close against the Manly Seagulls the week before, and they'd just been working their way. They'd been gritting their teeth and being in grindy sort of contests. They've been playing tougher, have the Parramatta Eels, and I just thought after last weekend, the Dragons, after the win against the Storm, I thought last weekend they just sort of falter. And they did, unfortunately for Dragons fans, in the first Golden Point contest of the year. If Big Tino was playing this game, I'd be really, really tempted to tip the Gold Coast Titans. But I think the shock from losing to the winless Parramatta Eels back at WIN Stadium in Wollongong, and I don't think the Titans have a fantastic record in WIN Stadium down there at Wollongong. I'm actually going to tip the Dragons here to bounce back and be a little bit better defensively than the Gold Coast Titans and win a close one on Friday Night Football, 1-12. The main event on Friday Night Footy emanates from Suncorp Stadium. It's the Brisbane Broncos hosting the Eastern Suburbs. Broncos $1.18, the Sydney Roosters $4.90. I'm telling you, if it was the Cowboys that were in the same form as the Roosters going into this clash, the Cowboys, I bet the bookies would put $9 on their backsides. I'm telling you, it should be a lot bigger on the Sydney Roosters. But let's go into the team list now for the Brisbane Broncos first of all, and they look to be unchanged despite Adam Reynolds coming off in that first half against the Tigers last weekend with a hamstring complaint. He has been named in at halfback. The rest of the forward pack, Jaden Hunt, Jack Gajewski and Kobe Hetherington, that's the back row for them. And the interchanges, Walters, Jensen, Willison and Tapa'u, Marty Tapa'u, in jersey number 17, returns to first grade after a few weeks out. I don't think he's even played first grade this year, but Big Tapa'u is there. Now for the Sydney Roosters, however, Dominic Young has survived the chop. Billy Smith maintains the rage in at centre. It is Chad Townsend who has been dropped for Hugo Savala. He is an enormous human, so for him to play halfback, look, I don't watch New South Wales Cup, but he's an enormous body playing halfback, so that'll be a fascinating watch for Hugo Savala. The forward pack, Nat Butcher is the starting prop because Lindsay Collins, the poor bugger, did his MCL, so he's out for the next 6 weeks, approximately. Connor Watson, Nofahu White, and then the starting regular back row for them. And the interchange is Docker Clay, Feketi, Steep, and Spencer Lenu. Look, there's some really nice pieces on this Sydney Roosters lineup, but they just can't hold on to the ball. They can't stop penalising themselves. And this Brisbane Broncos outfit, they're still not quite in top gear, aren't they? Sometimes I'd suggest they're not even in second gear, but they're still winning. And if you're winning ugly, it's a very, very good thing, isn't it? So I don't think the Broncos have quite hit peak form yet, but they did get a 50-plus points victory in round one against the Sydney Roosters. It is a tough start to the year for the Sydney Roosters. It was one of the tough first starts for any club in 2025, and I think it's going to get even tougher on Friday night. I can see this being another similar sort of scoreline to what it was in round one. I'm going to go the Brisbane Broncos 13+. For the first time this year, the NRL travels out west to Perth for a doubleheader out at Optus Stadium. The first contest is Sharks versus Manly. Cronulla, they are $1.49 favourites. The Sea Eagles are $2.63 outsiders. I think that's a little bit big on the Manly Sea Eagles. $2.63, that is really nice value, just quietly. For the Cronulla Sharks team list news here, Marine Hiroti maintains at the centre position. Other than that, it's per the program in the back line. The forward pack, there's no changes. Teague Wilton does come back into the fold, starting second row. McInnes starts in lock position. Interchange reads Atkinson, Talakai, Toby Rudolph and Tom Hazelton. Talakai returns to action as well this weekend. For the Manly Sea Eagles, Tom Tavoyevich is still out. Jason Saab came off in the final minute and looked really, really ginger, but he's been named on the wing. Bear with me here. I don't think he'll play, but just bear with me. And then Kola, Garrick, Falalau, Luke Brooks and DCE. And then the forward pack for them is Aloye, Takiaho, Olkawatu and the Trbojevic brothers round out the back row. And then the interchange is Simpkin, Brown, Bullymore and Sipley. Now in the reserves for them, you've got Tommy Talau in at 18th man. I think he could be a late inclusion for Jason Saab, but we'll see how Saab goes. And then Lachlan Croker is not too far away. He has been named in the reserves list for the Manly Sea Eagles. Now, just a little bit of history thanks to Rugby League Project. Please go and check out Rugby League Project for all the best stats going around town. So this will be Manly's 5th ever trip to Western Australia, and they are 3-1 whenever they travel to Perth. They've only lost on one occasion, and they have not lost in WA since the year 1996. And this also is a very special edition of the Battle of the Beaches, one of the more historical rivalries in the NRL. This is the second time that Sharks and Manly will have versed each other in Western Australia. They battled each other in the year 1993, and it was Manly that defeated Cronulla on that occasion. So take of that of what you will. They have battled in Perth before, and it was Manly that won on that occasion, 30 years ago, thereabouts. Far out. Also, this is the 100th edition of the Battle of the Beaches. Sharks versus Manly for the 100th time, and we know that Manly Sea Eagles has dominated this fixture. Despite it actually being a rivalry, it has been dominated by Manly Sea Eagles since 1967 when Cronulla entered the competition. Now, what does Cronulla's record look like? This will be the Sharks' 8th match in Perth. They have a 4-3 record when they travel to WA, and it was only a couple of years ago where they defeated, maybe it was last year, where they defeated the South Sydney Rabbitohs at this very venue. It will be the first time ever Manly will have played at Optus Stadium, and this is the Sharks' second outing to the brand new stadium out there in Western Australia. This is the hardest game to tip for this round, in my opinion. I really want to go with the hoodoo. I actually really want to tip Manly. I see them coming out roaring, but the Sharks, I really can't see myself standing here next week saying the Sharks are on a 3-game losing streak. I can't, especially that Manly, they can be patchy. They can be a purple patch or they can be a brown patch, if you know what I mean. So the Sharkies, they really need this win. They really do need this win. But Manly, they are the bogey side for the Sharks. They have history, really good history, whenever they do travel to Perth. I'm going to go the Sharks. I'm only just going to go for the Sharks. I think they're going to be a bit too desperate. Manly, they still really challenged Melbourne in that final 20 minutes of the first half. They really challenged them, and then they didn't come out of the sheds in the second half, did they? Did Manly. So I'm going to go the Cronulla Sharks in this one. Not confident. This is going to be a cracker, though. The second match of Super Saturday and the second match of the doubleheader at Optus Stadium sees the South Sydney Rabbitohs host the North Queensland Cowboys, and it is the Cowboys who are coming into the game as the favourites. They are $1.74, whereas the South Sydney Rabbitohs sit at $2.10. Going into the team list now for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Jai Gray, Alex Johnston and Isaiah Tass are the back three. AJ returns this weekend. Ewan Aitken and Jack Whiten are the centres for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and welcome back to first grade. Ewan Aitken, after he's recovered from, I think it was a shoulder injury, but an injury nonetheless. And then in the halves, Latrell Mitchell and Jaden Sullivan, they partner for the first time ever, and that is a brand new halves pairing. And Latrell Mitchell, this weekend, he absolutely scares the tripe out of me for sure, man. The forward pack for the South Sydney Rabbitohs reads Kepi, Mamouzelos and Totola. Kepi still having a really good year. The back row for the Rabbitohs is Kolomatangi, Jai Arrow and Hubner. And the interchange, hometown hero, I believe, Liam LeBlanc in jersey 14, Havili, Duncan and Mawali, and Tom Fletcher is in at 18th man for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. For the North Queensland Cowboys, there is a couple of changes, or just the one change really. The 1 to 7 for them is unchanged. Ruben Cotter returns to the fold after he was a late scratching due to an illness. He starts in the lock position, and the interchange reads McIntyre, Jeremiah Nene, Griffin Neem and Cohen Hess. Harrison Edwards is in at number 18. This will be the 42nd match between the Rabbitohs and the Cowboys, and it is the Rabbitohs who has the ledger at the moment. Now, if you're looking for try-scoring markets, Alex Johnston has scored 7 tries in his past 5 matches against the North Queensland Cowboys. That dates back to the year 2020. For the Cowboys side of things, Tom Dearden has scored 4 tries in 4 games against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. That dates back to the year 2021. For neutral venues, right, this will be the 7th time the Rabbitohs and Cowboys will have faced each other at a neutral venue. It's the 4th different one. They've played in Gosford, they've played in Newcastle, they've played in Cairns. Now they're playing in Perth. And whenever they've played at a neutral venue, the Cowboys are 3-2, and there's a draw thrown in there as well whenever they take on South Sydney Rabbitohs at a neutral venue. Now, for South Sydney's history, this will be the 13th match the Rabbitohs will have played in Western Australia. Their record in Western Australia sits at 5-7. They've also played at Optus Stadium twice. They are 0-2, so they've gone over across the Nullarbor more times than any other team playing this weekend at the venue. But South Sydney Rabbitohs don't have a glowing record whenever they have travelled out to Perth. So they are 5-7 whenever they travel to Western Australia. For the Cowboys, this will be the 3rd time in their history that they will have travelled out to WA. Unfortunately, they are 0-2, and this is the first trip to Perth since the year 1997 when they played against the Western Reds in the Super League back then. For the coaching record, Todd Payten versus Wayne Bennett. Since 2021, it's 2-3. Todd Payten versus Wayne Bennett. Wayne Bennett has really whipped the Cowboys throughout his illustrious career, but Todd Payten has come in over the past couple of years and nabbed a couple of victories, helped us get a couple of victories over the great master Wayne Bennett. Now, these are stats that I hope that they're listening. I hope that they're watching, but just some stats that I want to point out here, right? So this is a game that features teams that sit inside the top 3 for most dummy half runs. So Mamazoulis and Reece Robson's darts out of dummy half is going to be very important this weekend. But South, they are the 2nd best team in the competition after the first 5 rounds for kick meters. They have absolutely kicked the stitching out of the ball, but that was due to Cody Walker and Jamie Humphries, who are not playing this weekend. So you know what I'm telling the North Queensland Cowboys to do is that while Latrell Mitchell and Jaden Sullivan, they're talented, they're very, very skilled, respect them, but if you put the kick pressure on Latrell Mitchell and Jaden Sullivan, that's going to be a massive key for victory for the North Queensland Cowboys this weekend. The players that have gotten South Sydney to be the 2nd best team for kicking meters, those 2 players are not there this weekend. So the kick pressure from the Cowboys this Saturday is going to be massive, in my opinion anyway. So the transitions as well. The South Sydney Rabbitohs are the worst team in the competition for ineffective tackles. So if we're kicking the ball and then Jai Gray is coming back in field, we just got to shut them down and sit on top of them. And then when we're getting the ball back, we just got to find our front and play as fast as what we did, or they did, I should say. I should really say they should play as fast as what they did against the Penrith Panthers, because I think that might rattle the South Sydney Rabbitohs. But, I mean, South Sydney are top 3 for completions. Cowboys are sitting about 5th or 6th thereabouts, so they're good for completions. But the real big difference between the two sides is in discipline. The South Sydney Rabbitohs are the third most disciplined side in the competition, whereas I think coming into the last weekend, the Cowboys were the most penalised team in the entire competition. So Rabbitohs are completing, Rabbitohs are disciplined, so they're not going to give you much opportunity. So the Cowboys, they really need to cut that discipline in half to be a chance against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and they are. The Cowboys are definitely a chance, and they're going into the bye next weekend. So this is a 4-point victory on the precipice here for the North Queensland Cowboys. It is massive. And if we do get the dub, it means that we come out of our bye in 2 weeks' time for an Anzac Day game or an Anzac Day weekend game against the Gold Coast Titans, sitting at 50%. And it's just all the pressure, all the noise, all the drama and negativity that was being thrown at the North Queensland Cowboys in the first 2 to 3 weeks, which was justified just quietly. It's sort of all going to be forgotten, because then we're going to be sitting at 50% and we're going to be on the cusp of the 8 sort of thing, or maybe even in the 8, because we've got 2 extra points from the bye that we will have had next weekend. So this is a massive, massive game. Jackson Purdue, he is an absolute revelation, isn't he? And he's going to have his hands full this weekend. I believe that he is going to go one-on-one with Ewan Aitken. That is going to be veteran versus rookie sort of areas, and it's going to be a tough job. But Murray Taulagi and Tom Dearden obviously need to help him out. And then on the other side of things, Jack Whiten versus Viliami Vailea. That could be a bloodbath. If they're both as physical as they can be, that could be a smash mouth affair for sure. And then Johnston versus Robert Derby. The key for Robert Derby is that I think his leaps up for the ball up in the air have been really, really effective for us. And then the second row battles, it's going to be Kolomatangi versus John Bateman to begin with. So Bateman, I will not hear any bad word about Bateman's start to 2025. I think he has been supremely solid for us to begin with. And then Jai Arrow versus Kai O'Donnell. This is Kai O'Donnell's arguably his biggest test so far. I know last weekend there was Penrith, but Jai Arrow's he doesn't care about his body, and he's going to leave a mark on Kai O'Donnell. It's going to be up to him to try and put a bruise on Jai Arrow and try to just cop it. And then Jeremiah Nene will come on probably for John Bateman. Nene, I really have been quite happy with how he's gone over the past fortnight. Hopefully he can go to another level this weekend, because I think the Cowboys are going to need it. And I think that this is going to be end-to-end footy, really. This could be a really exciting affair, and I would not be surprised if Souths were to win by 1 point. I wouldn't be surprised if Cowboys were to win by 1 point, and the Cowboys will win by 1 point. It doesn't matter. They are just going to win this Saturday afternoon in Perth. Your boy will be there alongside Dor from the All Out Club, and I'm terribly excited to see not just Optus Stadium in person, but Perth experience that for the first time and return home with a Cowboys victory, hopefully. So go North Queensland Cowboys this Saturday. The third game on Super Saturday is from TO Stadium in Darwin, the Parramatta Eels versus the Canberra Raiders. The Eels are $2.59, the Raiders are $1.50, and this will be the final time that the Parramatta Eels will take a game to Darwin. And I know that there are Eels fans, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, that are saying, thank friggin' goodness for that. Let's look into the team list now for the Parramatta Eels. They 1 to 7 are unchanged. The forward pack is unchanged, and the interchange is Walker, Moretti, Geimer, and Tuivasa. Then the Canberra Raiders team list now is unchanged 1 to 7. The forward pack, Joe Tarpany, returns to action this weekend, and Horsburgh remains at lock position. The interchange reads Paddy, Sasangi, Smithies, and Atta Mariotta. Yeah, there's a sniff about Parramatta this weekend. I think that they will want to go out on a winning note, playing their last ever game in Darwin. But this Raiders outfit, There's something about them. They still need a little bit more polish. I think this is going to be a very tricky game for both these teams in what will be very trying conditions. But I just think that the Raiders just got a little bit more momentum than the Parramatta Eels do at the moment. And I'm going to go the Raiders to win this game in a close one, 1-12. Sunday, there are two matches. Game number 1, Storm host the Warriors from Amy Park, Melbourne. They are $1.15. The Warriors are $5.50. For the Melbourne Storm team list, Moses Leo remains in the centre after having a decent old game last weekend. The forward pack is unchanged, and so too is the rest of the team for Melbourne Storm. For the New Zealand Warriors, they're coming off a bye and a 2-game winning streak, so they're coming into this game with form. Tuapiki, Rocco Berry, Leotawa, Pompey, and Chance Noku-Klukstar at fullback. That's the back five with Harris DeVita and Metcalf, the halves pairing, and the forward pack is their full-strength forward pack. The interchange is Afoa, Ford, Valmaga, and Halasima. I really hope that the Warriors can at least have a good account of themselves, but there was a time where the Warriors were the bogey team for the Melbourne Storm, but since 2014 it has been utter annihilation by the Melbourne Storm onto the New Zealand Warriors. I've got to tip the Melbourne Storm here. I am going to say 13 plus, not an extravagant one, but I can see this maybe being a 30 points to 14 sort of a scoreline. But I really do hope the Warriors have a good account of themselves. But yeah, I can't go past the Melbourne Storm in this one. And the final game of round number 6 is from McDonald Jones Stadium. The Newcastle Knights host the West Tigers. The Knights at the moment are $1.62 favourites, whereas the Tigers sit at about $2.31. I think that is very, very juicy on the Tigers at the moment. And I think if you do want to get on the Tigers, you should decide to get on them now for sure. So going into the team list for the Knights, first of all, Kyle McCarthy is on the wing. That is for James Schiller, who suffered a concussion, and Phoenix Crossland is in at halfback. Jack Cogger is out. I believe that was due to a thumb injury, but Jack Cogger is out in any event. The forward pack for them is Brodie Jones, Jaden Brayley, and Leo Thompson. Jacob Saifidi out with a calf injury. Kai Pearce-Paul and Tyson Frizzell in the back row. I thought Tyson Frizzell last weekend was really good for them in that first half. The interchange is Matt Arthur, Tyrone Thompson, Jermaine McEwen, and Matt Croker. For the West Tigers now, they welcome back Jarrell Skelton on the wing. That is a massive inclusion for them. Another inclusion, even bigger, is Jerome Luai. He is going to partner Galvin in the halves, and then Samuel Afainu also returns for the West Tigers. The interchange reads De Silva, Hunt, Bird, and Fainu. The Tigers also, for the better part of 4 or 5 years, I'd suggest, have played pretty well. Despite last year, I would say that the Tigers have actually been a bit of a thorn in the side of the Newcastle Knights. They have picked up 2 victories since the year 2020, maybe even 3 off the top of the dome. But they always seem to give the Newcastle Knights a hell of a lot of curry whenever they do travel to the Hunter. But a massive shout out to the Newcastle Knights for the defence and the effort that they put in inside the first 50 minutes. And then when Crossland went off the paddock due to a really silly tripping sin bin, it just broke the backs of them. But that first half, that first 50 minutes, while ball in hand was pretty dreadful stuff, their defence, the Newcastle Knights, was really good. But I think Bulldogs maybe just were a little bit sloppy as well inside that first half. But in any event, they're still a plucky team. They're still a hard team to try to predict for, really, to try and prepare for. But I think the Tigers at $2.31, and with the recent knowledge that they played pretty decently in the Hunter Valley, I'm actually going to go the West Tigers to win this game. And I think having Jerome Luai back is enormous, but Samuel Afainu is an Origin player in waiting, not this year, potentially next year. And then Jarrell Skelton, I thought his start to the year probably had him in conversations for one of the Dally M Wingers of the Year before he got injured. So hopefully he can get back on track. His run meters out of Tigers deep end have been crucial for them. He was enormous against the Dolphins in the Tigers' victory up there at KO Stadium earlier this season. Skelton coming back is enormous. The Knights, they've got just too many injuries coming into this weekend, and I'm going to tip the West Tigers to win this game 1-12. Thank you very much, guys, for the continuous support. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Or you can come check me out on Instagram, because I'll be dropping some content and some videos about Optus Stadium and the trip to Perth that is happening in less than 24 hours. So I'm going over to WA with my mate Dor from All Out Club, going over with my mum as well, and should be a corker of a time. I think it's about 30 degrees over in Perth as well, so it's going to be a hot time too. Alrighty, have a very nice weekend. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.